crackies. I disconnected the last video. Okay, come on. No. We're not walking through this. This is a giant pond. Not a giant pond. This is what happens when we get a heavy rain. This is some bad drainage area. Did I just see a frog in there? I think it's really cool. And, whoa. Oh, either something jumped in there, or, yeah, here we go. Now he's gonna go nuts. No, I don't wanna run across this when it's wet. I might slip. Let's go inside. So, good. Edith Stein. Were we talking about Edith Stein? So she gets in, her sister. Go. So today is the feast of Saint Benedicta of the Cross. Born Edith Stein at 13, she, I guess, became disillusioned with her faith. She was an intellectual. She became, I believe, a professor. She was a philosopher. And like I said, she, her Catholic friends, by their example, she wanted to know what was going on. She said she read her way into the faith by reading the catechism, which is pretty cool. I mean, the catechism is kind of deep. But yeah, it's set up in a question, I guess. I think it's set up in a questions. Oh, I don't know if it's all set up in questions, but it's broken down in like 4 sections. Prayer, you don't know, the life of Jesus, presumably. How we should live and the sacraments. I think those are the 4 parts, something like that. Anyway, Edith Stein looked at the catechism and became convinced. I've said before, or I've heard, and repeated it, that the Catholic Church is nothing if not logical. So to her and her logic, she looked and said, the Catholic Church makes sense. She knew Judaism. Well, she left when she was 13. But I'm guessing because she was probably a precocious learner, she probably had a pretty good idea. Although, if she had the idea of Judaism and understood it well, it should have made sense because it's part of our faith. And it again, it's part of that logic. So I'm not sure how I should feel about that. Anyway, she basically logicked her way into the church. She becomes a nun. Her sister becomes a nun. They are working in Germany as nuns. It's not safe. They're sent away to the Netherlands. They get caught in the Netherlands because that gets also captured by the Nazis, invaded, and she's sent to Auschwitz. Today is also the feast day of Saint Marianne Cope. She also was born in Germany. So these are almost close in time. Marianne Cope, I think, was born in the 18-somethings and lived 1838 and lived to 1918. So I think she lived to be like 70 or 80 years old. And Edith Stein was born, don't know when, but she died in, I think, 1938 or something like that. And she was like 50, so I'm going to say she was born in like 1880s, 1881 maybe. So Mary Ann Cope was born in Germany. They immigrated to the United States, to Utica, New York. She ended up in Syracuse, New York. She became a nun. She became the head of the convent or the group that she was a nun of. She ended up being the director of the hospital. The hospital was unique. It took care of people no matter their race or religion, which apparently was unusual in those days. It was the only hospital in Syracuse. She was a teacher, I believe. She ends up going on a short what was supposed to be a couple of weeks to Hawaii, to Malachi, to with 6 other sisters to work on the island. Notice how I did that, to work on the island. And there's this chair in the middle of the water, the island. What are those? There's got to be some frogs swimming around in there. Anyway, she goes to work on the island and stays for 36 years, working in the leper camps. She ends up working to make a home to care for, what was that? To care for the children of the lepers, the girls particularly. Oh, maybe it was just a drop of water. And I thought we had frogs, because got a lot of frogs these days. I'll see, now that the water level's up over on that little, what I call a pond, every time I come there, last week or so, I've seen a frog jump in. I haven't seen it, but I've seen the water splash, and it's clearly a frog. Anyway, Sister Marianne Cope goes to Malachi. She ends up being the director of the home for the boys as well, which was started by Blessed Father Damien Vestry. And there's another story I saw in a thing where there was a guy, this is an offshoot. So anyway, she takes care of that. So Mother Mary Cope takes care of the lepers. She finally contracts leprosy after some 31 or 2 years or whatever. Continues to work. She has tuberculosis, which only exacerbates her problems. And meanwhile, Father Damien, so she knows the famous Father Damien. She's famous. I didn't know any of these until I'm starting to learn these names and of the saints these last few years. Anyway, I've read about him before. I don't remember his story, but I also read another story within the last couple of months of a guy who was in the Civil War. He becomes a drinker and a gambler. He marries a woman. She is a, what was the word they used? She's loose, whatever. She's infidel. She's infidelity. She's whatever. I forget the word. Anyway, she's loose. Whatever. So he gets despaired. He gets into depression, I believe. This other third man, and I think his name is George. I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, he goes into depression. He's completely in despair. And I don't know what it is that gets him back, but somehow he gets connected to the Catholic faith, and he goes, I believe, and lives in Kentucky with the Trappist monks to try to make up for his life of gambling and fighting and drinking and everything. He realizes that's not enough, so he goes to Hawaii, to Malachi, I believe, or to Hawaii, and he meets Father Damien. And he stays there, I think, the next 44 years of his life, or something like that, working with the lepers. Look up his name. I will write it in the heading. But yeah, he had that was an interesting story. I saw that on Instagram. I want to say Catholic Tavern, but I'm not sure. They've actually been posting a few posts I've seen that today or the other day made Germany look like they weren't, like they were the victims in World War II, which kind of like, or World War I. That the bankers and I don't know. Again, I think whatever the bankers may have done or whatever greed may have had a part in the opposing forces of Germany. I think we can probably agree that whatever these other people supposedly did, it didn't amount to killing millions and millions of Jews and priests and Catholics and Polish and all the other. So let's ask St. Mary Cope to pray for us. Saint Benedicta of the Cross to pray for us. Saint no, I forgot his name. From Hawaii. Saint I want to say Maximilian, but that's not it. The famous. Let's ask all the saints to pray for us and pray for the souls in purgatory and ask for conversion. Saint Benedicta was an intellectual. She was a person of logic and reason, and who would look at all the sides of an issue, and then make her decision. Someone who thinks logically. Let's ask for that kind of inspiration to, and I'm going to just say it. Yeah, no, I'm not going to say it. To all of the voters of the United States this November. Saint Benedicta, pray for us.